The space between us. 12 days. That's how long I managed to avoid Ryan. I deserve a medal for this achievement, honestly. Maybe a trophy with a little figure running away from another figure. World champion of awkward avoidance, it would say. Well, not completely avoid him. We lived in the same house, so avoiding him entirely was impossible unless I developed invisibility powers or mastered the art of becoming one with the furniture. But I made it work. I skipped breakfast when I heard him in the kitchen, surviving on granola bars stashed in my room like a squirrel preparing for nuclear winter. I took the long way through the living room when I knew he was on the couch, walking so close to the walls I practically left body-shaped indentations in them. If he walked into a room, I suddenly had something very important to do somewhere else, like urgently needing to alphabetize my sock drawer or check if the ceiling in my bedroom had exactly the same number of dots as yesterday. And he noticed, because subtlety is apparently not my superpower. At first, he didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow whenever I made a quick escape or barely acknowledged him, his eyebrow doing more judging than a panel on a reality TV show. Then he started commenting on it. "Seriously, Lena?" he muttered after I practically bolted from the dining table one morning, knocking over a chair and nearly clotheslining myself on the doorframe. "What's your deal?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. How was I supposed to explain that I couldn't even look at him without replaying that moment in the bathroom? That I had spent 12 days remembering how his towel sat low on his hips, how the water had dripped down his chest, that my brain refused to let it go, no matter how many times I yelled at myself, "Sorry, can't talk, too busy having inappropriate thoughts about my stepbrother." Yeah, that would go over great at the next family dinner. No, this avoidance thing was better. Safer. My new religion, Avoidism. Our main practice, pretending people don't exist when they make your heart do gymnastics. But then, on the 12th night, my luck ran out faster than my phone battery at 1%. It was late, almost midnight. I had spent the past hour tossing and turning in bed, too restless to sleep, counting sheep that kept morphing into Ryan's face. So I dragged myself downstairs, hoping a glass of water might help, or maybe a sledgehammer to the head, something to reset my brain. I didn't expect to find Ryan already in the kitchen, because of course, he was there, because the universe clearly had it out for me. He was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone, a half-empty glass of water beside him. He was wearing sweatpants, just sweatpants, no shirt, no shoes. The human equivalent of a thirst trap, standing there like he was posing for the cover of Torment Your Stepsister Monthly. Of course. I froze in the doorway, my fingers twitching at my sides like they were having their own little panic attack. He didn't look up right away, but when he did, his eyes locked onto mine instantly. Something in his gaze flickered, like he was trying to figure something out. Like he was a detective and I was a particularly obvious criminal still holding the stolen goods. "Lena," he said, voice deep and rough from the late hour. "Are we gonna talk about whatever the hell is going on with you?" I swallowed. Nothing's going on. My voice cracked like I was 13 again, presenting my science project on hormones. "Ironic," he scoffed, pushing off the counter. "Yeah? So you're just ignoring me for no reason? What, did I forget to flush the toilet once, and now I'm on your eternal blacklist?" I grabbed a glass and turned toward the sink, pretending to be very focused on the water level, as if I was conducting a scientific experiment on how much water a glass could hold before the laws of physics broke down. "I've been busy." Bullshit. His voice was closer now, close enough that I could practically feel the BS detector rays emanating from him. I tensed, my grip tightening around the glass as I forced myself to take slow, even breaths. Get it together, Lena. You're an adult. You've seen shirtless men before. Just think of him as a walking anatomy diagram. A very attractive, breathing anatomy diagram that smells really good. But then he was right next to me. His bare arm brushed against mine as he reached over and grabbed his water. The brief touch sent a spark shooting through my skin like I'd just licked a battery. I nearly dropped my glass. If my hand gripped any tighter, the glass would have shattered, and then I'd have to explain to the ER doctor how I managed to lacerate my hand while having a sexual crisis over my stepbrother. Ryan let out a low chuckle, like he could feel my reaction, like he knew. Like he was the mind reader from that vampire movie, Except instead of hearing thoughts about blood, he was hearing my internal screaming. "Okay," he said, taking a sip of water. "Then tell me something." I turned slightly, keeping my eyes on his face. Only his face. Not the abs that looked like they were carved by Michelangelo during a particularly inspired day. Not the V-line disappearing into his sweatpants like some kind of neon arrow pointing to problematic town. Just his face? What? Why can't you even look at me? Do I have a third eye growing out of my forehead? Did I suddenly turn into Medusa and you're afraid of turning to stone? My breath caught. He leaned in just a little, just enough that I could feel the heat of his skin, smell the faint traces of his soap. If soap companies needed a new slogan, they could use our soap, making awkward situations with your stepbrother even more awkward since 1995. This was bad. This was so bad. This was accidentally liking a 2-year-old Instagram post of your ex at 3 a.m. bad. Because suddenly, I wasn't thinking about how I was supposed to hate him for dating that awful girlfriend of his, the one who probably kicks puppies and doesn't recycle. I wasn't thinking about how I was supposed to see him as my stepbrother, a concept our parents had hammered into us with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. I was thinking about the way his eyes looked darker in the dim light, about how I had spent the last 12 days trying not to think about him, and how much I had failed. My Don't Think About Ryan challenge had gone about as well as my attempt at a sugar-free diet. That one time, I'd lasted approximately 4 hours before I was face-deep in a chocolate cake. I turned away before I did something stupid, like let my gaze drop lower, like let my thoughts go places they shouldn't, places that would make my therapist need a therapist. "I can look at you just fine," I muttered, with all the conviction of someone claiming they only had one drink, officer. "Prove it." I inhaled sharply, my fingers clenched around my glass, my pulse thundering in my ears like a herd of caffeinated elephants. He was messing with me. He had to be. This was some kind of weird psychological warfare. Next, he'd make me say Bloody Mary 3 times in front of a mirror. So I forced myself to meet his gaze, mentally chanting, "It's just a face, it's just a face, it's just a stupidly attractive face attached to your stepbrother." It was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to feel normal. But nothing about the way he was looking at me felt normal. Normal left the building, packed its bags, and moved to another continent. His lips parted slightly like he was about to say something. His jaw tensed. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. The kitchen suddenly felt like it was on fire, which was ironic considering I was pretty sure I'd just seen glaciers melt in his eyes. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the moment broke. He stepped back, exhaling through his nose like he was shaking something off. "Whatever, you're being weird." This from the guy who once spent an entire weekend trying to teach our cat to high-five. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, my lungs probably wondering what they'd done to deserve such treatment. "Good night, Lena," he muttered, walking past me. He didn't touch me this time, didn't even brush against me, but I still felt the ghost of his presence long after he was gone, like a perfume that lingers after someone leaves the room, except this perfume was made of confusion and hormones. I stared down at my water, my heart still racing. I'd come down for a glass of water, and instead got a full-blown cardiac workout. The American Heart Association should recommend awkward encounters with attractive stepbrothers as cardio. 12 days. And now, in the span of 5 minutes, I was right back where I started. Except this time, I wasn't just thinking about him with a towel. Now I was thinking about him without a towel. My therapist was going to need a raise. To be continued.